Institute here at NYU. I'm really glad you could join us. I'm also a co-founder of the Museum of Chinese in America, which I want to explain why I'm saying that in a second. A lot of people always ask us, well, what do those slashes mean in between the A, P, and A? And in fact, we did it deliberately because, as you all probably realize, these terms of what Asian is, what America is America just the United States, right? That's the common assumption. What about the Americas? What's Asia? How did Asia get formulated in the way it is used now, and how has it been different? It wasn't that many years ago that Americans, U.S. Americans, were totally unaware of South Asians, right? They were part of the British imperial kind of world, and Americans were not aware. For Americans, it was East Asians, right? But that stood in. Asians were East Asians, de facto. And then Pacific. We're part of an Atlantic world and a very kind of focus on what's happened in the Atlantic world in terms of the history, but what about the Pacific, right? So these kinds of questions are ones that we really want to raise and say that there are no simple answers. And this event is really part of that ongoing exploration that we're involved in. Why are we sponsoring this? Well, the short answer is that we're actually marking the very important publication of the book that we're here to talk about, and the panelists who are appearing here are all contributors to that book, and we're especially delighted to have Moustafa Bayoumi here, who is the editor of the book. A longer answer is that when I started what is now called the Museum of Chinese in America some 30-some years ago, there are two main reasons. One is that I became deeply aware of the impact of yellow peril on the experience of Asians in the United States and Asians in the diaspora and Asians in Asia. And this notion of the yellow peril is something that seems to have kind of receded in the mind and memory of many Americans, but it's had huge implications and it has an ongoing legacy. I also became increasingly involved in forming kind of what could be called the archive which is when the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed in this country. And in fact, most Americans, if you were to ask them, do not know that there was such an act, right? That really continued until technically it was repealed in '43, but it really wasn't really effectively repealed until 1965, 1968, right? So there's much that we don't know about our own history in the United States. So for me, when I had the opportunity to come to New York and to come to NYU and begin this institute, for me there was an archival issue. There was a fundamental challenge of bringing the materials, making what has been kind of disappeared and invisible in American history much more to the forefront, bringing research collections here, making what has been kind of invisible manifest so that our students and community here can begin to research this in a serious way. And it's not just for the students at NYU, it's really meant for any researcher that's interested. So we've been bringing in collections and also been aware that we have to document all these events because so much is not really acknowledged and represented. I say this because the work of Yara Lee is particularly important in this case, right? That film that was not confiscated is actually such a valuable, important document, but also a testament to actually what did happen. At NYU, we've been bringing in the Yoshio Kishi collection, which he calls Asian Americana, documenting the ways in which Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans and other kind of Southeast Asian folks have been represented historically. Materials that are in everybody's collections, but nobody really recognizes. How yellow peril itself was actually a category that the Library of Congress used, supposedly as an objective category describing U.S.-Asia relations. Okay, that kind of knowledge, that kind of memory is actually kind of disappeared again. We've also been involved in bringing the Jack Shaheen collection. Jack Shaheen has spent 30 years documenting Hollywood's representations of Arabs and Muslims. And his most recent book, Guilty, Hollywood's Verdict on Arabs After 9/11, is a critically important book that I recommend to all of you. So this is all about opening up spaces for fresh inquiry, to try to document the memories that oftentimes are so fleeting and so ephemeral. And of course, words do matter, and so does history. Yellow Peril is very deeply linked and related to our contemporary understanding of Islamophobia. And Yellow Peril is not a phenomenon of the past. It's constantly lurking and omnipresent in this culture, among others. And also, I should add that anti-Semitism is also very deeply linked. It hasn't been that long ago that Jews, Eastern European Jews, were called Oriental Jews. So there's much more complicated kinds of histories and genealogies in all this. So I'm delighted to introduce Moustafa Bayoumi, but also all of our guest speakers. Moustafa is someone I've known over a number of years now through Asian American Studies. He's a colleague at Brooklyn College. He is the editor of this very important volume. I just wanted to mention you should look at the program for the full introductions. I'm really just giving very brief introductions, but I just wanted to mention that there is going to be there is a South African edition now of the book, also an edition that is coming out in Turkish, and there's an ebook version coming out from OR Books, and of course the paperback edition that you see at the front table is a Haymarket book, and there will be a signing after the program. I also wanted to mention that Max Blumenthal, who's an eminent award-winning journalist and author, is with us. Most notably, his book Republican Gomorrah: Inside the Movement That Shattered the Party is a very important reading. Susan Buck-Morss is newly arrived at the CUNY Graduate Center. Really welcome, Susan. Really glad you're here. Her book on Walter Benjamin, The Dialectics of Seeing, has actually been one of my favorite books, and I really kind of commend you to the larger body of her work. Noam Chomsky probably for this audience doesn't need an introduction, and you see the introduction here is really more focused on his actually pioneering work in linguistics and linguistic theory. He's been at MIT for many years, but I think probably most of us know him through his prodigious ongoing work documenting, talking about human rights internationally, and his firm stance against imperialism around the world. And we're really delighted he could be here tonight, given how crazy his schedule is. And also, we're really delighted to have Andrew Ross, who's a professor here of the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis, a department that I'm also in, who is the author of many books, is really someone who has been one of the pioneers of American studies and cultural studies. And we're delighted that he's able to be the moderator for tonight. And also, I'm especially happy to mention that Zuhair Hamad is with us tonight, and she is actually our artist in residence this year at the AP Institute. So you'll hear her in a second. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce Moustafa Bayoumi. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to APA and to Jack for the invitation and for hosting this event. It's very exciting and a wonderful thing to see all of you here, and particularly considering the news of the day. And you're not really here to see me, you're here really to see the other people too, I think, or mainly them probably. So I won't take much of your time, but I do want to say a few things. First, I want to say that when it comes to those of us who have been involved in the politics of the Middle East, I never thought I would say this sentence. Finally, some good news. So, I mean, I want to celebrate and acknowledge the people of Tunisia. I want to celebrate and acknowledge what's going on in Egypt. I mean, and I want us to be able to grasp the importance of these really world historical events. They are phenomenal. It's a notion of popular sovereignty that is spreading like wildfire. Today alone, we've seen more demonstrations in Yemen, in Bahrain, in Iraq, in Iran, in Libya. Algeria and Morocco are not far behind. Jordan and the Palestinian Authority are scrambling. Something is afoot. Something great is afoot. So I think that's something that obviously will have an impact on our conversations today. And I think that the idea of popular sovereignty, the idea of people actually taking charge of their destiny and not leaving it to the politicians, is what connects the Midnight on the Mavi Marmara, this book, with the events of today. So I want to make that connection for you. I think that one of the amazing things about the Gaza Freedom Flotilla was the fact that it drew participants from dozens and dozens of countries from around the world, ordinary people who were so motivated because they had seen that governments were unable to change the status quo, either unable or in fact unwilling to change the status quo. And the status quo that we're talking about here in particular, obviously, is the siege of the Gaza Strip and what amounts to collective punishment of the over 1.5 million inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. And what we found from that action, the Gaza Freedom Flotilla was not the first one either, nor is it the first notion of popular sovereignty or of global civil society, I should say, really awakening and taking a commanding role in the Israel-Palestine conflict. We see that also in the West Bank with various other movements in the West Bank, particularly around where the wall is, the separation barrier, and perhaps some of you have seen the documentary Budrus, and that also addresses some of those same issues. But unlike what's going on in Tunisia or Egypt, the Gaza Freedom Flotilla does not have such an auspicious ending, as we all know. The results, in fact, were deadly. 9 people lost their lives. 9 people were killed. 8 Turkish people and 1 Turkish American. Nor did it change the situation on the ground immediately. Right? And despite protestations to the contrary, or despite allegations to the contrary. So let me give you an example. Before the actual blockade of the Gaza Strip means that most of the people who live in the Gaza Strip are called food insecure. They have very limited access, difficult access to getting the actual caloric requirements that they need. Not only are they food insecure, but the amount of water, clean water that's available to them is also desperately limited. Unemployment stands at something like 70%. It's very high. The difficulties in the Gaza Strip are legion. And most importantly, when you close off a strip like that, it's not just about what you're letting in. It's more actually important about what can you let out. Because trade, if you deny trade to the people of Gaza, what you are actually doing is you are setting up a situation of pauperization and dependency for the people of Gaza. And you are, in fact, also facilitating a criminal network system through the smuggling tunnels and the destruction of a civil society at the same time. Right? So all of that actually ends up in an ironic, maybe it's not so ironic, but actually it also ends up entrenching certain powerful structures within the Gaza society already, and is desperately unfair to the people of Gaza. And I think many around the world saw this, acknowledged this, were horrified by it, were trying to get governments to do something to change this policy. No government was willing to stand up to the Israelis, so they themselves took it upon themselves to change the situation, right? And we all know what happened. After the flotilla, one of the things that did seem to happen after the attack on the flotilla, after the 9 dead, was the Israeli announcement that they were now going to ease the sanctions on the Gaza Strip. But if you follow the news, then you'll know that in early this year there was a report by Save the Children, Amnesty International, and several others who talked about the fact that the situation on the ground in Gaza hadn't changed very much. I'll give you just a few summary points from that. This is after the so-called easing of the blockade. After Israel announced its easing of the siege, they only greenlighted construction materials for 7% of the UN's projects required in Gaza. UNRWA, the Refugee Works Agency, has received 562 truckloads of materials but needs 3,000 more to complete 25 projects. And the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, has received no building materials. The UN says 670,000 truckloads of materials are needed to meet Gaza's needs. 715 trucks per month do now pass through the border with Israel, but 715 is only 11% of what passed through before the blockade. Right? So even after the easing of the siege, the situation remains desperately the same to what it was prior to the so-called easing of the siege. I was actually in South Korea. I was teaching in South Korea when the attack on the Freedom Flotilla happened. And like many others around the world, I was horrified. And one of the publisher of Or Books contacted me via email and asked me if I would be interested in editing a quick volume on the book. So I agreed. And by quick, he meant like 4 to 6 weeks, which is crazy in book publishing. I don't know if anybody realizes how crazy that is. And so we never thought that we could do it, but with the great help of Colin Robinson, who's the publisher of Or Books, and Anthony Arnaud from Haymarket Books, and especially Liliana Segura, who worked with me very carefully and closely on securing these pieces, we were able to put together and compile the book Midnight on the Mavi Marmara, the first section of which is made up of eyewitness testimony from people who were actually on the ship. And I think that that's extremely important because this is also very much a battle of narratives. And this narrative, the narrative of the people who were actually participating on the flotilla, has definitely not been heard. After the attack, in fact, you had at least 2 op-eds that were published in the New York Times defending the Israelis' action, Israel's action, even though there were more than 560 people on board the ships. They could have easily asked one of the participants from the ship to contribute to the op-ed pages, and they did not. So it's very important, I think, that there be a public record from the participants of what actually did happen. So I hope that you'll take a look at the book. I hope that we'll have a very fruitful discussion today. And I hope that I can also convince, nobody needs convincing, of the power that ordinary people actually do have to change their world. So let me read you just the very end of the introduction from the book that we're talking about today. All right. There are so many good reasons to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and not a single good reason to keep it going. The conflict, for example, continues to feed a pernicious anti-Semitism and a frightening Islamophobia globally, where there is far too much noxious hatred already. Resolving the conflict between these two peoples with justice and equity will advance more than the interests of Israelis and Palestinians. It will have substantial and positive repercussions around the world in a way that solving no other conflict in today's world would. The question is how that solution is to be found and implemented. While difficult, it is not impossible. What is clear now, just as it was clear a generation ago, is that from either the Palestinian or the Israeli side, there can be no military solution to this problem. The solution must instead be one that is forged through dialogue, mutual recognition, and holding true to the principles of coexistence. What is equally clear is that the future will not be made by endless negotiations. The so-called peace process initiated by the 1993 Oslo agreements, which never guaranteed the Palestinians recognition of their rights to self-determination, are merely exercises in dissimulation, obfuscation, and futility. They cannot bring an end to the conflict. Instead, the actions of ordinary people from around the world are forcing the parameters of coexistence to emerge with ever more clarity. They involve an end to military occupation, an abandonment of terrorism, an embrace of full equality for Arabs and Jews alike, protection of minority and communal rights, and a just resolution to the question of refugees. There is nothing extraordinary in this list, just as there is nothing out of the ordinary in desiring peace with justice or working towards the end of oppression. What the Gaza Freedom Flotilla and actions like it show is that ordinary people may be the ones who are finally going to push the conflict to a resolution, one that guarantees justice for everyone. And the extraordinary power of ordinary individuals working together may very well be the lasting legacy of the attack on the Mavi Marmara. Thank you. What's going to happen now is we're going to be screening a short film from Yara Lee, which is from footage that she actually was able to smuggle out, since the Israelis did confiscate all recording equipment and documentation of what happened on the ship. But Yara was able to get this piece out. So this is, I think, an edited version of the longer, hour-long or so tape that she has. And then following this, Suhair Hamad will come up and she'll read two poems. And then the panel will convene, and we'll open it up for everybody after that. Thank you very much.
Some of this for, give me the onion. No, give me the onion. 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 Oh, Mavi. Indonesia. Yes. Sağlam tut, hadi. Hadi. Bismillah, tut, alttan. Bismillah. Kaldır, kaldır.